Okay, hello class. Weekly update 8. Yes, 8 we're at. Okay, so quiz numbers 5 and 6, really nice job collectively as a class on those. Just maybe 1 or 2 people a little behind. And got to catch up those folks. So if we're preparing for our exam number 2, which is Monday, November 8th, we'll be doing that live 4 o'clock on Zoom. You'll get an email right before class, log in, have to have your video on. So we'll have a proctored exam too. You notice the midterm grades we're in, and a few people I think use that to make some decisions about, and also some COVID health related issues. So we have a slightly shrinking class and had to readjust the groups. I'll give you a few details then. So exam number 2, Monday, November 8th, 4 o'clock, covers chapters 4 and 5. So go over the quiz questions, go over those videos we've had and suggested homeworks at the bottom, but I can give you a few details. We're not going to have a little practice exam. You know what they're like now, you know the type of questions I like to ask. So I've got concept questions and calculation questions. Concept questions are the usual. They'll probably cover 35 to 40% of the points of the exam will come from concept questions. So you have to know your vocabulary. Usual terms that we've had, but now we want to look at them in how they manifest in the simplex. Like we had unboundedness. What does that mean for the simplex? We had infeasibility. We'd already talked about auxiliary variables and artificial variables in phase 1 and phase 2, but like how do these things, cycling and degeneracy, like how are they going to be represented in simplex? What happens to the step size? What happens to your lambda? What happens to your iterations? What happens to your progress in the objective function? So think about those when you're studying all your vocabulary. Try to always put it in the context, because those are the main things that we're doing in chapters 4 and 5. We had, we also had initial basic feasible solution. That was something. And we talked about some of the savings for like revised simplex or the Sherman-Morris and Woodbury, like I'm not going to make you do those advanced algorithms by hand. You will, however, have to do the simplex by hand. You'll have a small problem and I'll ask you to do 1 or 2 iterations of it. So you need to know the step-by-step. That's a big chunk. That'll be like a 30, maybe even 35-point problem during the simplex. So you will have the calculation on that part, but you don't have to calculate with the more advanced algorithms, upper bound, lower bound, the revised simplex, the Sherman-Morris and Woodbury. Those are just know the big level details of those, why we're doing them. Oh, and then there will be one modeling problem. That's the other big point problem. So you have a calculation problem with the simplex. That's like, say 30 points, and then probably about 25 or 30 points on a modeling problem. That was chapter 4. We did a lot of different like set covering, shift covering, scheduling problems, like assigning clerks to do these jobs. So there'll be something along those lines. And so those are your 2 big time consuming problems. So think about, make sure you have the simplex like automatic, so you don't take much time. That gives you more time to think about the modeling. And then the concept questions should be straightforward and go rather quickly. We'll do our usual start at 4 and we'll be proctored till 5:15. Folks that have accommodations, you can continue on, and you'll put it in the Dropbox once you've put your work in the Dropbox afterwards. Okay, and then your homeworks, you still have till next week, which I think is the 3rd, November 3rd, Wednesday is the next due dates for 2 assignments. You have your MATLAB simplex with your team, and then your, what's the other one called? Like the simplex polytope, where you take a block of foam or cheese and you're going to do some simplex iterations, but you're actually going to see what's happening on a 3D problem. So you have another week on those, because I want to give you time to make sure you've got both those. In doing those and completing those homeworks, you should be well studied for that major question on the exam of doing a simplex iteration, and for many of the concept questions actually as well. So those 2 assignments are, think of them as excellent study guides. Okay, one last thing for this week then. I'll have a lot of grading that I'll do next week and then the week after, but not much this time. However, I do want to plug a couple classes. So next semester, when you're signing up for your classes, you have a few options. So I'm teaching 2 classes. Math 480 is undergrad senior level class, the first time we've done it. It's a special topics and it's called Preparation for Industrial Careers. The college got a little funding from the Mathematical Association of America to run a project-based class. I'm in charge of that. I'm getting some projects from industry. I have a few. You'll work in teams the entire semester on this project, and you'll learn how to do an industrial math problem with a team. That will be probably teams of 3, might have a few choices for the projects, and you have to submit a final presentation or report depending on what the industrial partner wants. Every week you'll have progress updates that you'll do. So certain groups, maybe you're on to present this week, you're off just listening next week, you're on again. So you'll have progress updates that are either in oral or written, like a little 2-page written summary of where you're at. You'll be able to have a lifeline to the industrial partner, but otherwise it's your project and you have to make progress on it. And you'll learn how to communicate. That's a big part of the class. So this preparation for industrial careers will include things like, how to write in text. So we'll have a lesson on that, and we'll have some guest speakers. We'll have something on technical communication, written form, oral form, Tufte's design principles. So we'll have many topics in the beginning where you'll go into OAKS and watch a quick module and then try to implement that in that week's assignment. Now the other class is Math 452, 552, and that's our for those of you that are interested in the, what is it called, the concentration in operations research, the certificate in operations research. This would be one that you'd want to take. And this class, operations research, is all the topics we'd use that term a bit in this class, but it's all the topics that you wouldn't do in optimization. So we're in optimization now. We're doing mostly linear optimization. We talked a little about nonlinear, and you've done some modeling of integer optimization. And so that's one whole field in operations research, the very largest one, mathematical programming. But this other class next semester is operations research, and it's everything but those optimization things. That can include Markov chains, simulation, queuing theory, like, Howard lines and the whole FastPass system in Disney, like how was that designed? That's why people who were operations research majors that studied queuing theory became experts in that. Information retrieval. So I know a couple of you are interested in that. Jen in particular will have a module on information retrieval, how search engines work. With the Markov chains, one of the famous examples of that is PageRank, and that's how Google's search engine works. So we'll learn about information retrieval from 2 different perspectives. So we'll have 4 or 5 topics at the beginning that we'll have lectures on, and little mini projects that you'll do in teams where you'll get to decide. Like I might present Markov chains, and then I'll ask you have a very open-ended project that week where you just have to use Markov chains in any way that you see. And so people have done some really neat things in the past with Markov chains as natural language simulators. People have done it with like the route through in a choose your own adventure book. And so groups would choose that. They have a week or sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks, depending on the topic and the project to complete that. And then you'll present your work. We do a lot of oral presentations in that class. And then halfway through the class, once we've learned 4, 5, 6 different topics in operations research, you will, with a group, take the second half of the class to decide on the project that you want to work on. It could be extending something you did in the first part of the class, something totally new, something from maybe you're doing an internship or have a job and you're interested in. You'll work as a team that last half, making progress reports, and then a final presentation. It's a big part of the group. So in both those classes, there are no quizzes or exams. There's just these progress updates that we're doing them in technical communication style, and then a big final presentation that you'll, if you have any questions or interested in more information, let me know, but they're already in the course offerings, and check out the times that they'll be available. We'll be doing some stuff asynchronous, some synchronous, some possibly in-person meetings during that, depending on what our industrial partners want as well. Lately though, with COVID, it seems a lot of the partners are pushing for more online presentations, but we're getting good at those, right? All right, so that's Math 480 and Math 452, 552. I hope many of you, hope to see you guys continue and we can work together again next semester.